Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
Welcome to Chptr Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law. We are doing chapter 32 about looking after our health, which is also halacha. Our bodies are only on loan from Hashem, and we are chapter 32 and number 4, Daled. Okay. So Adam Menurav Koicha Ikol Shlei Chazak. When a person is young, so the power of digestion, the way the body operates, is very powerful. Valken, and therefore, tzarich mozin todir yoisim and ish hashomim b'imsom yomov. Therefore, they need to eat more often than someone who is middle-aged. Vazaken l'chalishas koichoi, and when a person gets older and the strength saps a little bit, they get a little bit weaker. Tzarich shiyah machal kal, he has to eat less. Ma'at becomes v'harav be'echus l'chazak koichoi. When we say less, that's less in quantity, but they should increase in quality. And that's is going to give them maximum strength. Going to strengthen them. So yeah, we were all there, and we've all seen the young people just pile through the food like nothing happened, and then they're hungry 5 minutes later. Because that's youth. And as we get older, we eat a little bit less, but the quality should be better. Okay, so hey, number 5. The Me'achoim, hot days. So it's 105 here. I think that qualifies as hot. So on hot days, our body's ability to process food is weakened due to the heat. And therefore, we should eat less in the hot days than we do in the cold days. And the less, what does that mean? So the definition, the amount that we should eat less, that the scholars, medical scholars say, to eat during the summer, is to eat 2/3 of what we would eat during the winter. Okay, number 6, Klal Godel B'darchei Refuah. So an underlying principle, important rule when it comes to health. Before eating, a person should be active. They should walk, or they do whatever they're doing, and they should get a little bit, warm themselves up, feel hotter from whatever we're doing. And then you eat. And this is what it's referring to in the verse when it says, by the sweat, they always translate the sweat of your brow, but it means literally the sweat on your nose, but you should eat bread. The Naaman also says, bread of laziness you shouldn't eat. So you should be active before eating. Then you should loosen your belt before eating. This also depends how much you're going to eat. But loosen your belt. Let's skip the brackets. The shasachila, and while eating, you should sit in your place, or you lean to the left. People used to recline on couches, various things. And after eating, we shouldn't shake ourselves around too much. It's not that you're not allowed to move, but not anything's going to be jolting or shaking. Because by doing that, it causes the food to go down to the next part of the stomach without being properly digested, and it can be unhealthy, it can damage a person. The other person should only walk a little bit, and they should rest. The yiga is atzmal, and a person shouldn't go on long walks or strain themselves right after eating. Good to wait 2 hours after eating before sleeping. Shouldn't sleep for 2 hours. So because what happens is that things rush to the brain that perhaps shouldn't, and it can be again unhealthy. Likewise, hot, sweaty baths or bloodletting and different procedures, they're not good to do right after eating. Person should have a bit of a break. Okay. So that's general things. What we're going to say now, though, is sorry, let's let someone in. What we're going to say now is that when it comes to people's, I guess the temperament, the way their body's made up, everyone's different. So different people have different natures, and their bodies react different to different things. So Zion number 7. So those just joined us. So welcome. So we are chapter 32, number 7. People are different. We're not all the same when it comes to our metabolism and the way our bodies work. The people who a little more fiery, people a little more cold. And then there's like intermediate. And different foods are also different. And they have different reactions for different people. So someone who's got an average, it's whatever average means. It's like ask 10 different people to define normal. Compare the answers. All right. So whatever we'll say like an average temperament, digestive system. They should also eat foods that have an average. But someone who is not the middle, they're either more quicker, hotter metabolism or a colder one, they should have a little bit, they should eat a little bit of the opposite. So someone has a hot metabolism, it's a fast one, they shouldn't eat too much spicy food because the combination is not going to go well. They should some of what they eat should be cold, it should be vinegary. Someone who has more of a cold metabolism. They should eat some hot food, a little bit of hot food. I'm not talking about the temperature now, I'm talking about the. And also, it changes a little bit. The food changes according to the time and the place. But in summer, it's good to eat cold food. So, for example, half cow meat, gadim, rakim, and kids, meaning the goats' kids, not we don't eat people kids, The freichi, tarnagulos, and the little small chickens. They call them in Australia they call them spatchcocks. They call them here Cornish hens, right? Those type of things, so the smaller ones. The gam katsas mutzim and also a little bit of pickled food. But in the winter, person should eat hot food. Medina kara, likewise in a cold climate, person should eat hot food. Medina chama, but in a hot place, person should eat cool food. Okay. So we said different type of temperaments, and you eat middle. If you have an average one, you eat average food. But that didn't give us too much information. So now we're going to try and define what that means a little bit. So ches number 8. average food, I mean, for the person who's got the average temperament, digestive system, it means bread made from wheat. Now, not totally processed, not totally fine flour. Because when it's overly processed, it delays the digestion. Musam should have a little bit of brain. And it should be not like a sourdough, but it's become chametz, and it's has in a little bit of salt, and it's baked.
Leavened.
Yeah, leavened. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And it should have some salt in it. It should be baked in the oven. And too much food made of wheat is also not good. Now, when it comes to meat, a toiv keves minchnasoi. The best is, I guess we'll call it veal. It's lamb. And also young kids. However, the intestines and the head, they're not so good. And old goats and old cows and aged cheeses. So they're not so good. They're too heavy. Too heavy for the average person. And all fowl. It's easier to digest than animal meat. The Taisha Eifis Tanagulus, and the best fowl, the best bird for digestion is a chicken. Amaroifim, and the doctors say, the food that people are used to doesn't damage them. If it's not such a good food. Because when a person is habituated to something, that becomes their nature. As long as he doesn't overeat. So we see the certain parts of the world where they eat incredibly spicy food. And it's just regular, and people are not used to that. I'm not going to say they drop dead, God forbid, but it's not going to be a pleasant experience. And they during not that COVID was really something to make jokes about, but they used to joke there was a Moroccan went to eat at a family came from Poland, and they ate the fish, and they said there's no taste. We better get checked for COVID. It was So if you had Moroccan fish and a Polish gefilte fish, you'll see why they had their concern. Right, slight difference over there. Anyway, test number 9. A person shouldn't eat heart of an animal or a bird, to eat their heart, because it makes a person forget the Torah learning. It's bad for memory. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I sometimes have enough trouble remembering things. I certainly don't need any assistance to forget. So we'll avoid eating heart. Also, a person shouldn't eat from something that a mouse or a cat has eaten from. It's also bad for your memory. Yeah, Mordechai.
Yeah, there are certain organs that, according to government regulations, aren't allowed to be sold anyhow.
Yeah. So they don't sell hearts, I guess. I don't think I ever saw hearts for sale in the butcher. Right. Yud number 10. Zman achila. So when should a person eat? A person should eat when a person is truthfully hungry and not fake hungry. So so what does that mean? So the difference between knowing when a person has a true uh, desire or need for food as opposed to a false one is as follows. The first one, meaning the true one, is called Rav. Now, Rav they often translate in English as, I don't want to say starvation, but it means, in this context, a person is truly hungry. It's time choreik, the up part of the stomach where they do their digestion is empty. So they're in need of food, actually, they're genuinely feeling hungry because the part of the stomach is empty. Vashnia, now the second type, excuse me, Hishimis Ava Machal Miyuchad Nikres Tayavon. So when a person fancies a certain food, when a person's hungry, they'll eat what's available. And a person is just fancying, they fancy a certain, I don't know, well, different people fancy different things. Someone it's a chocolate, another person it's a steak, whatever it is.
Ice
This is
cream.
just called, yeah, ice cream. This is just called a te'avon, appetite. A person they fancy something. They're not necessarily really hungry. And generally speaking. So again, obviously everyone's different. A person who's healthy and is strong, they should eat twice a day. That's his advice. And and in Talmudic times that was the norm. They would eat a mid-morning meal after davening and learning and maybe starting a bit of work. We'll call it a brunch. And then they ate an evening meal. The chaloshim is a kanim, and if someone's weak or they're older, they should maybe only eat once. And then there are those that they eat, those who eat a lot twice a day. They eat more, than twice a day. Then what happens is they weaken the power to digest and various things. I mean, I think today it's pretty much the norm, 3 meals a day, but that's what they did. Well, right, so
I'm looking at the English. I think he's saying that should eat we should eat less at each sitting, but more frequently. Here it says the weak and the elderly should eat less at each sitting,
has too
but
much
should
at
eat
once,
more frequently.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So sometimes it's good to spread what's the amount that's eaten over the day. But right, so this and someone who wants to preserve their health, they want to stay healthy. They should wait until their stomach is empty from the previous meal. And the average, again, everyone's different, but the average digestion for someone that's healthy, and if they've eaten an average meal, is they've digested, it takes approximately 6 hours. So again, someone has a lighter snack, and there's some foods that are heavier and some foods that are lighter, and depends how much a person had. If a person had a good meal, good healthy meal, so the average digestion is 6 hours, which is why in the ideal world, after eating a meat meal, right, or an aged cheese, we wait 6 hours before eating the other one, because that's how long it takes to digest a full meal like that. And it's good to skip a meal once a week in order to help your digestive system recover Give it a rest. Shabbos. And it's good maybe to do that on a Friday. I guess that's taking in mind we're going to eat a little extra on Shabbos. Yid Aleph, number 11. It's good to get into the habit of eating bread in the morning. Okay, I mean, it's, today, of course, most of what's sold as bread is not real bread anymore. It's so highly processed and different things. It doesn't necessarily have the nutrients. And particularly today's bread, or sometimes bread in general, doesn't agree with some people, and some people have gluten issues. But again, it's talking about the average person. It's good to have to wash and to bench and to have a meal based on bread. Number 12. Someone wants to have different types of food. So at the meal, all different types. The Arim im Mazing. Should start off with just to, I guess, give a bit of introduction before we I mean, it's really speaking about things that we should have the lighter things going to be ease the digestive system in first. So have some type of appetizer. I guess that's also how it works. I mean, today when people go to weddings and various things, sometimes the appetizer is not really appetizer. Sometimes they just serve you multiple courses of heavy food. But if someone's going, like, so if we're looking at Shabbos, for example, where we're having, so that traditionally someone has some fish, it's lighter than the meat. Person that moves on to like a soup, but something in it's also, and then onto the to the main dish, whatever it happens to be, which is the heavier food. And the person shouldn't squash it all together, have everything in one shot. And the shoyim at rather, person should there should be a bit of a gap between the different types of food. Right. And the person should first have the light foods that are easier to digest. For an example, meat of chicken or bird meat before having red meat, which is heavy and hard to digest. And you have the meat of small animals, sheep and goats, before larger animals, cows and various things. And different things that we'll say, like fruit, an example that get the digestion working a little bit. So you have them after eating, straight afterwards, and shouldn't have too much. Okay. Yud Gimel, number 13. Now, since digestion begins in the mouth, through the combination of chewing and the saliva, a person shouldn't swallow food without chewing it. Because if a person swallows the food without chewing it properly, it puts too much strain on the intestines to do the digestion. So last week, there's something I've been guilty of in the past, something I'm working on. Yidal 14. Kavramon, we already said, now, we sort of speak generally about which foods are better for people and how a person should eat, but everyone's different at the end of the day. Different people have different type of digestive systems. They have different temperaments. They have different the way they react to different foods. So a person should choose according to what doctors generally accept as healthy, according to his nature and his place and time. Right? It's v'derech klal, and generally speaking, generally speaking, the early the early healers, the early doctors, they put food into different categories. There are certain foods that are very bad for a person. Right? They're not good. And a person should avoid them. They should never eat them. For example, there were certain large fish that they used to salt, and they were old. They were, by the time a person ate it, so preserved in salt. It wasn't just a little bit of salt; they were preserved, and so the smaller fish it worked, but the larger fish apparently didn't work so well. And I don't think we really have them today too much. So a person should avoid those, like vina malucha shana, or cheese that's very salty and aged. Hayman or proteins and certain types of mushrooms, I guess the toadstools, different things, they're bad for a person. The basamulacha yoshan and old salted preserved meat. Right? So there's jerky but then there's really old. Yes. V'yain megitoi, or wine that hasn't gone through the whole fermentation process. You've taken out early. Or food that's been out and is starting to smell. So these are types. Again, today, refrigeration is not so eventually everything spoils, but it's spoiled. It was more common. So those foods we should avoid. Likewise, any food that has it smells bad, it's very bitter. The guf k'may for the body, it's like the elixir of death. It's like a poison. So that's things we avoid all the time. But there's some of the other foods, they're not good, but they're not so bad. So a person eats it once in a while. You shouldn't get in the habit that should be your meal, or to eat it with your meals constantly. It says, for an example, large fish and cheese, milk that's already 24 hours old. And again, this is pre-refrigeration. Most people today would never see milk less than 24 hours old. It's I'm afraid to ask how old the milk is when it arrives in the supermarket. But refrigeration, now milk that's 24 hours old is already Abasta Shavarim Gedoilim is Yoshim Gedoilim, older animals, so large oxen and large type of goats, these things that so and barley bread and like these ways and these onions and garlic and mustard and radish. So that shouldn't be a meal. It's a nice bit of mustard on your hot dog or something maybe goes well, but to make meals out of these things, it's not good. These things they're bad for a person to have as their regular meals. So a person has it once in a while. So a person, excuse me, should only have these foods once in a while, and preferably in winter. But in the summer, person shouldn't. So get milk that's 24 hours refrigeration. The winter you can have once in a while, but in summer forget it. Okay. Passive 15. Then we got the next step down. They're still not so great, but they're not as bad. All right, so duck. But they yone katanim or small doves, or tamarim, and dates, or bread that was kneaded with oil, so oily bread. The shenifa oisa called sarkach lanisha bar reach musen, or flour that's so finely processed there's not even a smell of bran in it. I know the house and chale eila. Person can eat it, but you shouldn't have too much. You shouldn't have a lot of it. 17. Person should limit themselves from pre-fruit. Shouldn't eat too much of it. Even dry food. For sure, when it's a little overripe. But if they've before they've ripened all their way, so to have them before they're ripened is not good. All pickled fruit. I'm not sure what fruit. Vegetables are pickled off. I'm not sure what fruit people pickle, but I guess it's no good. And those pickled fruit, a person should only eat in a hot climate and in the summer. But figs and grapes and pomegranates, he just mentions in the brackets that it looks like there's a mistake over here. Instead of pomegranates, say almonds. The oilam tovim, they're always good. Ben retuvim, ben yavashim, whether they're fresh or they're dried, a little bit very ripe or dried. And a person can eat as much as they want. Nevertheless, you shouldn't constantly eat them. Even though they are the most healthy of all the fruit of trees. Okay, 17. Now when it comes to drinking, water is the drink. That's for the nature of the person and for the health. That's what we should have. Now, imheim zakim atzulim oilim shamim hartivas shavaguf from the haitzias psilis. So if they're, we have clean water, right? So especially in times past, it wasn't always so good. A person should try and filter it. Shista mime, when a person drinks water, yivchas a korim. Should better cold water. Because cold water quenches the thirst better, and it's better for digestion. But not freezing. Because this holds back. It stops the natural warmth of the person has naturally. But nevertheless, if a person's very tired and he's strained himself, they shouldn't drink cold water. Because what happens is the fat of the heart, it gets warm and it can damaged. So when a person's overheated and strained, when this cold water can damage the person, can bring to a dangerous situation, God forbid. Now, even though that water is good for the health of the body, so a person should drink it. Nevertheless, the person shouldn't overdrink. English this mind they shouldn't drink too much water before eating. The fish is kara is because it stops the digestive system from digesting properly. And also on a person during the meal, they should only drink a little bit of water, and they should mix it with wine. That's the Mediterranean way. And once they've eaten and they begin to digest, as yishte shiobeni, then they can drink an average amount of water. And it's just mind likewise, a person shouldn't drink water right after they come out of the bathhouse. It's kara covered because you don't want to cool off your liver. And excuse me. And for sure, a person shouldn't drink in the bathhouse itself. So again, look, sometimes after someone's sweated a lot, it's they're actually a little dehydrated and they need to drink. But it's saying that right after the body's it's sweating from the steam and different things, and you should let that process run its course. Also, person when the body's naturally a little bit hot, a little bit weak, also shouldn't drink too much then. Okay. 18. Wine increases the body's natural warmth. Native is equal and it's good for digestion. Okay, obviously, we'll mention that there's a limited moderation here as well. Doesn't mean people should drink a keg a day, but wine's good for digestion. It might say some sorrows and it helps you the waste to flow through the body and to come out. It helps the health of the body. When you drink an average amount. It's someone who's feeling, literally means a weak brain, but they're feeling a little lightheaded. They're not. They should be careful about wine. Because it can increase the weakness and make a person feel groggy. The Yain Yafel is a kaina mazik na'orim. Wine's good for the elderly and it strengthens the youth. Because since it arouses the natural warmth of the body. So it's adding fire to the fire, so to speak. It's getting the body going. And a person should be careful of wine until 21 years. Right? In other words, although we said it has certain health benefits, kids shouldn't necessarily be drinking it by the cupload. It's interesting, it seems here the drinking age is 21 in halacha. Before eating, a person should only have a little bit of wine. It helps open up the intestines. But not when a person's very hungry. Not after being in a bathhouse or when they've really sweated. Not after really hard work. And during the meal, should drink only a little bit. Okay, 19. A person should only eat when actually hungry. The yishte should only drink when he's actually thirsty. Yashin the cover of a rega echad and shouldn't hold himself back when going to the bathroom. and shouldn't go to eat until he's made sure that he's gone to the bathroom and he's finished. Number 20. The person should do their best to ensure that their stomach and their intestine, everything is healthy all his life. The and when he goes to the bathroom, it should be soft. And this is a underlying principle of health. Anytime a person is unable to go to the bathroom or is very constipated, right? If it keeps happening, it goes, it leads to bad health. Likewise, a person, his stomach, it's weak and he's not able to push and various things. He should go to a doctor. He should get it checked out and see what he needs to do to fix it up. Ish lefi mizgoy lefi yomov, and each person according to his temperament, his the way his body works, and according to his age and different things, his time, what's available. 21. So a person should try to take the middle path is generally what's good for the body. Right, so I mean, sorry, just to clarify what I meant, when it comes to straining oneself, exercising, or physical labor, whatever it is, so working hard, it's good. It's good for health. The giga doila, but overexertion, going too overboard. Likewise, resting too much. Mazikim the guf. This is bad for the body. And when it's very hot, person shouldn't work physically too hard. And when it's cold, you need to do more. Right? Someone who's a little bit heavier needs to work a little bit harder than someone who's not so. Okay, 22. Someone who wants to preserve and wants to guard his health. He has to know the different temperaments, the different the different cycles, we'll say, of his body. And he has to be careful. They are, for example, a simcha, when a person's with joy, with dago, or he's worried, the kas, or he's angry, or pachad, he's afraid. These have an effect on the person. And a person should try to intellectually work on themselves. They should be happy what they have. They should try and be happy in their situation. And a person shouldn't get too worried and stressed, because this world is not really our world. This world is right. Lo yavakesh yisroinus. Don't be trying always to seek more and more. You have a tov leva of a simcha masois. They should be happy. Should be positive, but again in a balanced way. This is what happens when a person has the right temperament. They're feeling happy in a balanced way. This causes their body to function properly, and the digestion to work, and to the body to remove the waste and various things. And it strengthens the eyes and all their senses. And also strengthens one's mind. So obviously there can be, God forbid, there can be medical conditions that can cause problems. So we're not saying that every problem, it can be let's say a bacteria or a virus. It's not because a person was in a bad mood necessarily. A person can have the best mood, and they can still chas v'shalom, they can get the flu. But what we mean is that when a person is always very stressed, or they're always worried, this runs their body down. The body can't function under stress. Nevertheless, you can't be too happy about your eating and drinking, like this guy. I don't want to say like a foodie. Right? Too much celebration is not good for the body either. And it's karbalei pisoim, and what can happen? This can stop the warmth, literally the flow of the body, and it can cause the heart to come cold suddenly. But and a person, God forbid, I think it's not about heart attacks. A person overdoes it, it's can be a problem. And this is particularly a concern for people who are very heavy, because the energy levels are low. What happens is the blood flow becomes limited and becomes less powerful in the person, their circulation, and it becomes a problem. Now, Hadaiga, when we said the person's worried and stressed, this is the opposite of simcha. The gamhi, which we normally translate as joy and happiness, but simcha means like, being healthy in your own skin, feeling good in your own skin, who you are, your situation. Doesn't necessarily mean dancing on the moon all the time. The gamhi mazekis, ishimakares is a goof. Now, this stress and worry is damaging. And it puts too much pressure on the heart, and it can also bring to death, God forbid. And too much anger, a person being angry all the time. This makes the body also too overworked. Until what fear has maybe the same result, but the opposite cause, the opposite feeling. Right? So all these different stresses that we put on the body, it stops the body functioning the way it's meant to. Which is harbor kridos ulayamas. This can also, when a person comes to cold and feel they become like paralyzed, this can also lead to death, God forbid. And how much more so a person should be careful. They shouldn't sit down to eat when they're angry or they're afraid or they're stressed, but they should have a healthy happiness. Now, obviously, if the person's in one of those situations and it's ongoing, you're not going to starve yourself. You're not going to say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to eat now till I calm down." Person that won't be very good either. But a person's got to try and be balanced and to work through things. 23. Now, a balanced amount of sleep is good for the body. So what happens is a person digests and all their senses, all their body is rested. Now, if a person is in a situation because of poor health, they're not able to sleep. They should eat something that brings to sleep. Hot cocoa, whatever it is, whatever helps a person sleep. But too much sleep, mazekes, this damages. What happens? The head is too much blood. Too much can lead to reflux, different things. The things comes up from the stomach to the brain. What happens? The person, the head becomes cloudy, so to speak. It's too much, and it can lead to damaging the body. And just like you have to be careful not to sleep immediately after eating, but also a person shouldn't go to sleep when they're very hungry. Kishain Mosin Beguf, because what will happen if the body doesn't have the fuel to function? Then when he goes to sleep, it affects his brain. Those hours is not getting what it needs. And when he sleeps, he can become very lightheaded. Because what's going to happen is it without the food and the fuel, it has an effect on the brain. Shena Tvius he balayla. The natural time to sleep is at night. Vishnasayom is ekis, and having a sleep during the day. We're not talking about a little nap. We're talking about your actual sleep time during the day is unhealthy. Now, look, there are people who work night shift and different things, and that's not the same. Not the same. And it's not a good habit to get into to make one's primary sleep during the day. Okay. 24. Haven't been many questions today. All right. 24. Derek Architza. So people are gonna be a little surprised about this, but again, remember, people didn't have showers and plumbing and different things. So how do people wash? Person should go to the bathhouse every week, once a week, whether they need it or not. The like shurov, like surveyor. Person shouldn't go to the bathhouse when they're very hungry or if they're overly full. The shiyaschal mazon is alcohol, rather when the food's starting to digest. First, they should wash in hot water. Then they should have lukewarm water. And then they should have a cold, cool water. And when they leave the bathhouse, he should dress properly and cover his head properly. So the cold wind, when he's wet, you don't want to have the cold wind blowing you wet, so you should be properly dressed. Even in the summer, so you have to be careful about this. It can still be a cool wind. And a person should wait. They shouldn't leave the bathhouse until they settle down. Sometimes the hot water person feels very hot, and they're not feeling, it's not good to go out yet. And after you calm down a little bit, the body returns back to normal from being very hot. Then you should eat something. And if you are going to sleep a little bit when you go out from the bathhouse, before you eat, this is the best. Okay, and again, the bathhouses, particularly in Europe, they're like, I guess, they have these like Russian bathhouses type things. It was like also a schwitz, sauna and different things, it was a whole experience. I'm not sure every time someone has a quick shower, they need to be concerned about all of these things. Okay, 25. Person should always try and live in a place that has clean air. That's not polluted. It should be a higher place. It should be wide, the buildings in his house. Also, you have space. You should have clean air. If possible, you shouldn't live in the summer in a place that opens to the north. The Sad Mizrach, not to the east. So the Yeb Sham Mut Dava Mu'uposh. So things they shouldn't get like rotten, like to moldy with toivel. Ma'oy lenakos arya bias todib beraises toivim of a shonis ma'olim. Right, and it's good to clean the air of the house constantly. You should they used to, again, people lived they had dirt floors was the norm. and they used to, didn't like the hose water their floor, but they used to like a spray, like a mist type thing, it's to settle the dust and all these things. Today we keep your house clean, have good ventilations. Essentially, this is what we're talking about. 26. Now, clean air or good air for health. This is equal. Before we said there's different types of person have different nature, different metabolisms, there's different foods, but clean air is equal to everyone. Every type of person, clean air is beneficial. And hot, cold. Right? A person shouldn't overeat the house, or shouldn't overheat their home. Person should have, there should be a balance between the home, right? It says that the people who overheat the home, they're like they don't have any brains. Through overheating themselves, they can come to many sicknesses. A person can dehydrate. Person, they raise the body temperature too much. It's not good. We should warm the house in a way that you're not feeling the cold. It takes out the bite and it's not uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be overly heated. Okay, it doesn't speak now about cooling because they didn't have the means, but the air conditioning, the same thing. You cool down the house till it's nice and comfortable, but a person shouldn't live in a walk-in refrigerator. It's too cold is also no good. 27. Person should guard their eyesight. They really got to look after and protect their eyesight. So on the Rome Elo, they should be careful of these things. They shouldn't suddenly go out from a dark place to a very bright place. And if they do need to, if they have to go from a dark place to a light place, they should open the door a little bit. And they should look with have a little bit of light as they're going for a few moments. Then they can open the door more. And then they can get used to that level of sunlight for a few moments. Then you can open the door all the way. Right, so the person shouldn't go through extreme light with their eyes. Likewise, when a person is going from a bright place to a dark place, do the same thing. Because going from extreme light to extreme darkness, or from extreme darkness to extreme light, without some type of intermediary, a middle level, it's damaging to the eyes. And therefore, a person, Hashem created in His mercy the world in this manner. When the sun rises, it goes bit by bit. It makes slightly more lighter, then slightly more lighter. It's not instantaneous. Hashem could have made the world, 1 minute is dark, the next minute it's full daylight. Hashem doesn't do that. Likewise, when the sun sets, it's bit by bit. It goes gradually. And this is the reason, or this is the idea that we make the following bracha. Okay, even though we're in the middle of 27, but I guess we ran out of time. And I know some people have other places they need to go. I'm on vacation. I got a little extra time, but don't want to spoil it for others. So that's we'll finish the chapter next week, God willing. Any questions or comments before we finish up?
Such useful suggestions. Wonderful. Thank you.
This is the poor Richard Dominic of this guy.
And it's interesting that it's in a halacha book. It's not like just good advice. In other
Right.
words, Hashem mandates us to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. You're
Yes,
right.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Rabbi, I heard you mention, speaking about horseradish, mustard, onions, garlic. You said we were to eat them, but not too often. Is that? Could you
Well,
clarify?
we're saying not to have it as the meal. I think the way and it's developed the way we normally eat these things is like as a flavoring on something. You put a bit of mustard on your hot dog, but the person shouldn't like eat mustard or radishes or these things as their meal, or onions as their meal. That's unhealthy.
I've understood from Maimonides, Rabbi Musa ben Maimon, that garlic, not alone, but like a clove of garlic has antibiotic properties, and that
I think all of these things. So you mix it into food, and it's a flavor, and it adds certain nutrients, and it's and it has things it does. So that's great, but it shouldn't be the meal. I think that's what he was saying.
Oh yes.
That's how I understood it. Maybe hopefully I understood it correctly. But how I understood is that these foods shouldn't become the meal. They're not. There's something that we eat in small amounts, not as large amounts.
And I understand that salt and sugar are really dangerous if overused.
Yeah, I mean, again, like sugar, like we have today, didn't exist in those days. I mean, people didn't. They didn't have that, so the sugar didn't even really come up. But salt, again, again, in moderation. Moderation, it's great. But what happens is that normally when we have to start watching our salt is because there wasn't moderation till now. So, now we have to go the other extreme. But if from the beginning to the end, if we're able to, a lot of these things, if they're used only in moderation all the time, and again, it's part of processed foods. They want to make the food always taste the same, always look the same, always be the same colors. Natural products each batch should be different.
I know processed food is bad.
Processed food, and that's and unfortunately, there's some people who the almighty buck is the driving force of their life, and a few people get poisoned in the interim. It's no problem as long as they make their money. God forbid. Yes. It's the way of the world. Food isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's just imagination. I'm sure people notice, fruit and vegetables don't taste the same as they did in the past.
No.
The methods they use, it's all about making more money, less investment, more profit. And it's not like people took pride in what they grew, and they, and it was really the soil was prepared, and anyway, we can only deal with what we have.
And Entenmann's mini donuts, Baruch Hashem, are still here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, take care.
Good day.
Have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.